Hi, welcome back. It's Bridget. I have a book video for you today. If you've known me for any amount of time, you would know how much I love to read. I love all kinds of books: nonfiction, fiction, romance, mystery, thriller, horror, all of it. I just love to read. So I have put together a little stack of books that I currently have in my possession that I wanted to show you. These are the ones that I have that I think that if you are on any type of self-care journey or fitness journey or just wanting to change your life, these are some of the books that I think are really important. So I have 7 books to share with you. I have 2 biography type books. I have 1 book of poems. I have 2 fiction books for you, and I have 2 kind of self-help style books. The first ones I'm going to start off with are the biography style books. And the first one I want to mention is Your Fight, My Fight, Your Fight by Ronda Rousey. And this book, it's a thick one, but I'm telling you now, don't be scared to read this one because it's thick. It goes by so fast. The minute I picked this up, I could not set it down. So if you didn't know, Ronda Rousey is she's incredible. She started off doing judo and became like a champion in the Olympics, and then made her way into MMA, into the UFC, and now she's doing like crazy stuff like with WWE, like has her own stuff, like it's just insane. And this basically just goes over her story, and the story is written so well. There's so many struggles that she went through, and just her being like completely broke, like not living out of her car for some time, and still being this badass woman who like is doing pretty well for herself. So if you are in the MMA space, highly recommend picking this one up. It totally motivated me to like get my ass up and working. The next one I have is Never Finished by David Goggins. And I actually haven't read this one, but this is a physical copy that I have, and I'm actually recommending You Can't Hurt Me. Do I like David Goggins? No, he really needs to read this next book that I'm going to be talking about. But I think the premise of just mind over matter is such an important lesson. And You Can't Hurt Me is like a crazy story, if you haven't read it, about David Goggins, this guy who he just doesn't stop, and he doesn't know when to stop, and he can't stop. Like he has these goals, and like his thing is you can't hurt me. Like nothing can hurt him. And it's just a crazy story. For anybody who is dealing with like mental toughness or wants to become a little bit more gritty, I guess, this is definitely not for somebody who is against the hustle culture. That is for sure. If you are somebody who is looking for more of a zen kind of peaceful, this is not the book for you. This is very hardcore. Try to take everything he says with a grain of salt. Like I said, I really think he needs to read this next book that I'm going to be talking about. So said book that is How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. So you might know Dr. Nicole LePera on Instagram as the Holistic Psychologist. And this book it is crazy. So it's she talks about, I don't know how to explain it. Basically, she talks about like all these things that you might be dealing with, and anxiety, depression, just not meeting your goals, and why. So it recognizes your patterns, heal from the past, and create yourself. And there's a workbook that goes along with this that I think would be really helpful, especially if you're willing to dive deep. Now, this talks a lot about childhood trauma, how you were raised, just trauma as an adult. So I would highly recommend to be careful if you're gonna pick this one up, because it can get deep real quick. I think that this is super important to know yourself and to recognize your patterns, especially when you're starting this like lifestyle change, fitness change, because you start to notice your own habits. And I think this is really important for anybody to read. Next up, we have Born to Run. I know, right? By Christopher McDougall. This book, if you are in the running space at all, I'm sure you've heard of this book. This book follows the Tarahumaras and their just crazy running influence that it has in ultra running in the community. It's really cool because like we actually got to meet a lot of the people in this book, which is just kind of crazy. And we got to meet Christopher McDougall at one of the ultra races that we got to go to, but that's not why I'm recommending it. In 2020, when I did 75 Hard, this was one of the books that I read, and this is actually what got myself and Eric, my husband, into ultra running. This book is highly inspiring, and it's just so fascinating to read about other cultures in the world. So if you're in the running space and you haven't read this one, you need to pick it up, because I don't know how you've gone this long being a runner and not have heard of this or read this. Okay, the last book that I'm going to recommend that is in the, well, technically this one is fiction, but in the like nonfiction realm, I guess. It's not, this is totally fiction. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do have two like novels that I want to recommend. So this first one, I'm gonna call this a book of poetry. This book of poetry, this fictional book of poetry, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy? I think that's how you pronounce it, Mackesy. This book is phenomenal. Like, it's I know you've seen these photos probably on, if it's focusing, I know you've seen these photos on like Instagram or something before, but this story, so every page when you read it is like its own, this is the intro. Okay, but every page has like a few lines and a photo. As you go along, it will read the story to you. So it's like a full, like it's like a story. You can just read it straight through like a book. Or what I did a lot when I was meditating was I would just open up to like a random page, and I would use that as my prompt for when I would meditate. So this one says, so much beauty we need to look after. And they're looking out into like, you know, there's like a shooting star, and they're looking out into the forest. But it basically follows this boy, and then it has the horse who's like super knowledgeable. There's a mole who like really likes cake. The fox, I don't know about the fox, I can't remember, but it's just such a wonderful story about kindness, and just like looking inward and looking out into the world and enjoying the small things. And it's just such a calming, awesome book to just, it feels good, and it's really motivating to just read and think about life and what we're doing here, what you're doing, what your own adventure is. How are you enjoying the little things like cake? All right, these last two, which you've probably been waiting for, are my fiction picks. And these are two novels by two people that you're going to be like, are you kidding me? What do you mean these are life-changing and motivating? I'm gonna start with, let's start with this one. You're like, it ends with us? Really? How is this life-changing? So It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Is Colleen Hoover the best writer in the world? No. Are her books entertaining? Yes. Do all of her books have meaning? And no. This one, however, though, has a special place in my heart, because up until I read It Ends With Us, I never quite understood domestic violence. I understood it, but I couldn't empathize. Luckily, I'd never been put in a situation where physical violence in a relationship was part of my life. And that is why I think this book is so important that everybody needs to read, because you really fall in love with Lily, and you get to see her relationship with Ryle form. And it's funny because when I picked up this book, I just picked it up because it was popular. I didn't know anything about it. Up until the thing happens, I was like, I hate this guy. Like, this is, I almost DNF'd it. And then I was like, I'm gonna give myself 10 more pages. And then the thing happened and I was hooked, and I cried so much in this book because it really allowed me to empathize and like feel what it feels like, because I watched everything happen, and to just hear Lily's side, and I just think everybody needs to read this book and just see what it's like. And I think when you're going through a transformation, you're on your fitness journey, it's really important to understand different ways of living. And I think it's really important to understand yourself, how you deal with emotions, and how you can help other people. When people are going through these transformations, yes, it's all about yourself and like going inward and learning about yourself and your own habits and all of these things. But the reason why we're doing these things is so that we can help other people. At least for me, it is. I think it would be extremely selfish to just do everything for me. I want to make sure that my mental state is good for my kids. I want to make sure that I'm physically active so that I can run if I need to, that I can pick up something if I need to and run. I want to make sure that like I am emotionally available for the people around me. And I think that really understanding empathy is really important, especially in domestic abuse situations. And the last book I have is kind of a lighter hearted one. This one is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid, you might have known her for her Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is an amazing book. You might know her from Malibu Rising, or Daisy Jones and the Six, which is now a TV show, which is really good. But this book, this is one of her romance books before kind of that whole world that she created was created. And this book was funny because my husband actually got this as a blind book, like a blind date with a book from Barnes & Noble, where they wrap it in paper and you can't see what's inside. And it just kind of gives you like, this story's about blah, 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 blah. And he picked this one out and I opened it up, and I think I was reading one of her other books, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's Taylor Jenkins Reid, it's TJR. And I got so excited. So I immediately started this book, and oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. So this is a romance, but it's more of a literary fiction. So this explores marriage. It starts off with this couple, and they've been married, like they've been together for like a long time, I think like 10 years. But they've been together for a while, and they came to like a weird spot where they were just like, I don't know if I really want to be married to you anymore. But they didn't want to quite get a divorce. So they decide to spend a year apart and just like discover themselves. Like they're not together, but they're not separated, or like they're not angry. They're just like, I don't know if I love you anymore. I don't know if I want to be with you anymore. Let's revisit this in a year. You go live over here for a while. We won't talk. We have no communication. And we'll just date other people. If we sleep with other people, we do. And, you know, this is how it is. And during this, it follows the year that they're apart. And this really explores marriage and every way that marriage can be portrayed. There is the marriage that, you know, we're all shown man and woman, get married, have a dog, buy a house, the perfect marriage, right? And then it shows it going wrong. And then it shows her mom, who she's been married before and she's not interested in it. So she just dates and finds guys, and when the romance is gone, she moves on. Like, she just really wants to be wooed and like find the romance. And once that's gone, she moves on to the next guy who's gonna woo her. Then you have the grandparents who are stuck together. Like, they don't really like each other, but you don't divorce. So like, you just love it. Like, once you're married to somebody, you have to stay with them forever. So you have that old traditional type thought of marriage. Then you have a gay marriage. You have, I believe it's her sister and her wife, and they have kids, and you have just all these different portrayals of marriage and how all of it's so different. And I think especially if you are somebody who is in a marriage, or maybe you're somebody who doesn't want to get married, but if you are somebody who values relationships, or maybe doesn't quite understand relationships, this one is really good. And for the same reason, when we're going through these transformations, when we're going through a journey within ourselves, especially if you're with somebody and have kids, it's really important to understand that there are different types of relationships, that relationships are going to be a part of your life all the time, and just know that there's different versions of it. So these are the books that I would recommend to you if you need a little bit of motivation within your transformation journey, in your self-fitness, self-exploration journey. These are the books that I love. These are the books that I first thought of when I thought of what are some motivating books. These are the ones that came to mind, and I tried to get a little bit of different variation in here, and I hope that if you pick one up, please let me know, and let me know if it had the same effect on you. That's all I have, so we'll see you next time.